No, don't attack my straw. Don't even think about it. Can you just be there and not lick your butthole?
He's not in the shot if he does. No, it falls out.
What's up, y'all? Welcome back to the channel. I hope that you had a fabulous holiday and a happy new year. Grace and I just celebrated our 2-year anniversary of being married. It feels like it's flown by and also feels like we've known each other forever. I'm sure a lot of people can relate to that. But I'm curious, what do you guys think of the new channel intro? So when we were thinking about making this a joint channel, we're like, should we call it something? Like, we don't want to just call it like Megan and Grayson. So we're like, what feels like it represents us? It's going to be a sort of lifestyle channel. So we've been kicking around the kind of natural life. And at first, Grayson thought I said the kind and natural life. And I was like, no, like the kind of natural life. Because like we live a mostly natural lifestyle, but like we live in a house. I'm not in the jungle. I'm not like foraging my own food. It's not that natural, but it's pretty natural. So I don't know. What do you guys think? Comment down below. Let me know what you think. So today I wanted to answer the most common question from the first video that we posted. One of the biggest questions that came up over and over again was, am I still vegan? So the short answer is no, I am no longer vegan. If it's really important to you to follow an exclusively vegan channel, this is not going to be the channel for you. Happy to answer any questions if you want to comment them down below. I'm going to share a little bit of the story of how I got to not being vegan anymore. I shared in the previous video how my friend had passed away, and then I had a bit of a health crash after that, and I found out that I had something called copper toxicity. So the not being vegan is also related to the copper toxicity thing. My friend passed away. I had this health crash and it was super scary. Some of you who have been following my channel or used to watch Arnold's Way channel in the past, you might know more of my story, but I'll just give you like a brief history. So when I was in college, I started having all these food allergies and developed a bleeding stomach ulcer, had it confirmed and like tested that it was bleeding, and just had all kinds of crazy digestive problems. And I had about a year or a little bit more where I was like mostly bedridden. Like I would go out occasionally, but like most of the time was really just spent in bed. And I went from weighing about 125 pounds to weighing 107 pounds in like a few month period. I just like wasn't absorbing things. My hair was falling out. My skin was gray. So I kind of stumbled upon this raw vegan lifestyle after trying so many different things and, eating a paleo diet and removing all chemicals. Like I wore like zero makeup. I used like no products on my body, like just water and like Dr. Bronner's. And so I stumbled upon this raw food cafe, started following a raw diet, felt a lot better, and did some fasting and all kinds of things. And I got to a point where I felt like I was like 85% recovered. And I sort of just like thought, okay, that's good enough. Like I felt like I was dying before, and now I feel pretty dang good eating this raw food diet. So I'm just going to stick with it. And I stuck with it for a really long time. And that's why I started my channel. I started sharing recipes and things like that because I found it to be really healing for me. But it never really helped me to like fully get back to myself and like fully recover my ability to like handle stress, like emotional stress, physical stress. Fast forward about a decade, I had been eating a raw food and vegan diet for that long, and I found a lot of healing. I had so much community. I had so many friends that were in that world, and just designed my whole life and business and everything around it. When I would have crashes, which would happen from time to time, like if I was traveling a lot or I got really stressed, I couldn't really identify what was causing it. I didn't know what, other than just kind of labeling it as like, okay, I got really sick when I was younger, and ever since then I just have a low stress threshold and I just need to be careful. So then when my friend passed away after traveling a lot and helping to care for her, I had several months of just also sort of being bedridden, like struggling with appetite, having headaches, feeling lethargic, having mood swings. I was like crying randomly, and it wasn't just grief. It was like I was crying because my body felt like off, like really, really off. And I remember going into Joey's office multiple times a day, just like crying and being like, what's wrong with me? I have tried every supplement possible. I have tried detoxing. I have tried eating this food, that food. I've tried, reducing my stress. I've tried resting. I've tried being out in nature. I tried so many things. We had some friends in the community that had recently started eating animal foods and had a lot of benefits from it, whether it was like recovering an injury that just like wasn't going away, or just feeling like they had more energy, or feeling like mentally sharper. There were definitely some benefits that other people that we were close to were experiencing. So it made me feel more open to trying something outside of my vegan box. There was just some piece to the puzzle that I was not connecting. I just randomly stumbled upon this podcast that was talking about how adrenal fatigue is not actually adrenal fatigue, and it's actually copper toxicity. I forget who was hosting the podcast, but the person that they were interviewing was the kind of expert on this. It was a woman, and she was a functional medicine practitioner. I contacted this person who was interviewed in the podcast, and I was like, hey, I'm curious to see if I potentially have copper toxicity. And so we did a consultation. She asked me a bunch of questions, and she was like, you're vegan? You've been vegan for how long? And like, what was your diet like when you were a kid? And so we kind of went through like my whole history. And she was like, it's pretty likely that you might have copper toxicity. So we did some testing and found out that my free copper levels relative to copper binding protein were like way high, like very abnormally high. And she was like, this is probably what's causing all of these symptoms for you. So I followed her recommendations as far as diet changes. And at first I was still always using animal foods or thinking of them as like a temporary thing. I was like, okay, I'll just like do what I need to, and then I'll like get back to my vegan lifestyle. But as I started to look at all of the foods that were really high in copper, I was like, oh my goodness, like I'm getting really limited here. And this kind of explains like why my symptoms would get worse at certain times of year and different things like that, depending on what foods and fruits I was eating, and why my symptoms got worse as I started to eat a more cooked food vegan diet and incorporate more vegan proteins. And so the foods that I needed to avoid were basically all nuts and seeds, all beans and legumes. I needed to avoid cacao, coconut, avocados, figs, stone fruits, any dried fruits as well, like certain types of like tomato sauces. And I was like, oh my goodness, this is really overwhelming. Like there's so many foods that are high in copper. So I did it for about 3 months, and I felt so much better after that 3 months. I remember going for a run up the hill that I lived on and feeling like I had so much energy, so much stamina. And I was like in the shower after my run, just like laughing. And I was like, is this what everyone feels like? Is like, this is what it feels like to feel normal? Because I got sick when I was like 20 or 21. It had been so long since I felt like quote unquote normal. And I couldn't believe just the strength that I had and the clarity that I had, and that I just felt like I wasn't so fragile. I didn't have to like be watching my stress all the time. And I was like, oh my goodness, I can like actually kind of push myself. Many times that first year, I tried to kind of lean back in towards more vegan foods. I kept thinking that it would be possible for me to get back to it, but I would start to feel terrible again. I saw a lot of I was trying to like learn from the other people that had YouTube channels that were going through diet changes. And I remember there was like one person who was selling all these vegan products and like courses, and then they like got caught eating like fish or something out in public. And I was like, gosh, I certainly don't want that to happen. So as soon as I made the diet change, I pretty much took down like a bunch of my books and things like that, because I was like, I don't want people to call me a hypocrite and say I'm like selling these vegan products, but I'm not vegan. And then I just slowly kind of like walked away from it, because I was like, I just need to like take care of myself and think about what I'm doing from this point forward. And so I decided to go back to school and just kind of like reclused a little bit. And I kind of went through a period where I was just like, oh man, it feels so good to just not have anybody know where I am or what I'm doing. I think that's why I feel grateful to have Grayson involved in like actually being on camera, and like this being our channel now and the kind of natural life. Just because it does feel like there's a little bit less pressure, and it's not my like business, and it's not my source of income, and I can just kind of, we can just sort of, show up as ourselves and share what's going on in our life and not have a lot of expectations around it. Some of the things that are still left over with me that I think will always stick with me from being vegan are not going to zoos, not going to aquariums, I typically don't buy new leather products. Like anything that I get is typically used. Most of my clothing and everything is secondhand anyway. I'm not much of a go out and shop kind of gal. Um, and then a lot of the supplements that I take are vegan as well. And the makeup that I use is all cruelty free and vegan. I feel like I've covered most of what needs to be covered there. Our next video, I think we're going to be talking about our favorite kitchen gadgets. We have not discussed ahead of time what gadgets are our favorite. So, like, Grayson's going to go grab his, I'm going to go grab mine. Things that we use just every day that we find super useful in the kitchen. And maybe you have them, maybe you don't. But if you want to find out, you can tune in next time. And I thank you so much for watching, and I'll see you soon.